Hello. This presentation is the Pathways of IRB Review, Approval of Human Subjects Research Studies at UB. This presentation has been approved by the University of Buffalo Institutional Review Board, better known as the IRB. The information will be presented by Zachary Chakan, IRB Administrator. This presentation is part of the Clinical and Translational Science Institute's educational series. This presentation will talk about where your study is at in the IRB pathway from the time that it is submitted in the CLIC system all the way through to whenever it is finally approved. It will also explain the types of review that your study may undergo after it is determined that the IRB review is required. We will discuss the IRB pre-review process, the exempt, expedited, and full board review levels, and your typical timeline for IRB review. However, this presentation will not talk about non-human subjects research or quality assurance or quality improvement studies. Those will be covered in future presentations. After your study or submission has been submitted in CLIC, it joins all of the other studies and submissions that come in from other investigators and researchers throughout the university. An IRB intake coordinator will make the initial decision about the study risk level based off of the materials included in your submission. This chart will help to show the different types of directions that your study can go. The intake coordinator will determine whether your study looks like it involves greater than minimal risk, or if it looks like it will be a minimal risk study. A study that is greater than minimal risk will go to the full board for review and is sent to an IRB meeting coordinator in order to place it on a full board meeting. Minimal risk studies will end up meeting exempt or expedited research criteria, and those will be sent to an IRB administrator for non-committee review that is done within the IRB office. In order to determine the correct pathway of your study for IRB review, the IRB has to assess whether your study is minimal risk or greater than minimal risk. The definition of minimal risk in human subjects research is this: the probability and magnitude of harm or discomfort anticipated in the research are not greater than those ordinarily encountered in daily life or during the performance of routine physical or psychological examinations or tests. This definition comes from the common rule that dictates regulations for human subjects research. Consideration is also given to privacy and confidentiality risks as well. Identification of research participants or their responses cannot reasonably place them at risk of liability or be damaging to their financial standing, employability, insurability, reputation, or be stigmatizing. Research involving illegal behavior could be something that could raise the risk level from minimal risk to a greater than minimal risk study. Once the initial triage of your study takes place, either the IRB intake or IRB meeting coordinator will complete the following tasks. They will check that all required documents are submitted using the current required templates and are in their correct location in the CLIC Smart Form pages of your submission. They will assign a conflict of interest review to the conflict of interest administrator. They will verify that all study team members have completed all of the required city courses, and also make a note if certain study team members have not completed all of the requirements just yet. And full board studies and expedited studies with participant interaction will be sent to a CTSI clinical research facilitator to conduct a more thorough pre-review of study documents. The chart below will be listed on all study submissions, such as new studies, continuing reviews, and modifications. It will also be seen throughout this presentation. The The first type of research we will talk about today is exempt research. Exempt research involves no more than minimal risk to subjects, including risk of identification of participants or their responses. Identifying information is often not collected as part of exempt research studies. However, if identifiers are collected as part of the research data, a confidentiality breach of that data would not result in any negative impact or harm to the research participants of that study. All research activities in the study must fall under exempt categories for the IRB to determine it as an exempt study. The UB IRB uses the HRP 312 exemption worksheet to help make its exempt determinations. More information is available on that worksheet for your reference. 4 of the more common exempt categories of exempt research are included on this slide. Exempt Category 1 is educational research using normal educational practices. This could be a research study that takes place in a classroom looking at the procedure of a teacher as part of the normal education. If anything new is inputted into that educational practice, it would not meet Exempt Category 1. Exempt Category 2 includes survey and interview studies with adult participants. This is likely the most common exempt category we see at the UB IRB. Examples of this would include using the Qualtrics platform to conduct an anonymous survey asking participants about their favorite foods. Exempt Category 3 is non-medical benign behavioral interventions and data collection with cognitively capable adults. These would include interventions that are very brief in duration, perhaps only a couple minutes of time, that would affect a participant's behavior and to see what decisions they make based off of that intervention. Finally, Exempt Category 4 is secondary research on existing data where no identifiers are recorded, including a code or a link to identifiers. This would be a chart review study where no identifiers are collected or accessed as part of the research. If you believe that your research study will qualify for exempt status, you will not need to input your information into the Central Study Registration System unless it may meet exempt criteria 4. All chart review studies through the university must still be entered into Central Study Registration. Within the CLIC system, you would just submit your completed protocol and other study documents as you would for any other research study. You may also add a comment into the Study History tab in your CLIC submission stating that you are seeking exempt status. That will help tip off the IRB to know the next steps for the review process. For an exempt research study, pre-review will take place as noted on the previous slides, but the study will be reviewed by an IRB Administrator. An IRB Administrator will review all the documents in your study, and if they require any modifications to any documents, these will be requested to you within the CLIC system. If the IRB does determine that your study does not meet one of the exempt categories, you will be asked to go back and submit your study in Central Study Registration. When all clarifications are addressed to meet the criteria for approval, including the city and conflict of interest requirements, a determinant of exempt will be recorded, and your study will be approved, and an approval letter will be sent to you within the CLIC system. Expedited research also involves no more than minimal risk to subjects. Similar to the exempt review process, all research activities in the study must fall under expedited categories in order to be determined as expedited by the IRB. The review process is very similar for both types of research. There are 9 expedited categories in which your research may fall under, but 4 of the more common ones are listed below. Expedited Category 2 involves blood collection within specified frequency and volume limits by age and health. Expedited Category 4 involves data collection through non-invasive means routinely employed in clinical practice, such as non-contrast MRIs, ECGs, and ultrasounds. Expedited Category 5 involves chart review studies from routine non-research procedures such as medical or administrative records. And expedited category 7 involves research on individual or group characteristics or behavior such as observation, focus groups, interviews, or surveys. The workflow for your expedited submission is similar to Exempt in a lot of ways. However, one of the main differences is that expedited studies must be submitted into Central Study Registration. When Central Study Registration is complete, your study will automatically go into the Click system. You will still need to click the Submit button in your research study in order for it to enter the IRB workflow. Pre-review for expedited studies takes place just as with exempt studies. Your study will be sent to an IRB Administrator for review, and it will be in a non-committee review status in an orange box on the top of your screen at that time. The administrator may consult with another IRB member or an expert in the field, or refer the study to the full board if they feel that it actually is a greater than minimal risk study. If the administrator reviews the study themselves, they may request modifications to the submission directly in the Click system. Similar to exempt studies, when all clarifications are addressed and they meet the criteria for approval, which is the HRP 314 worksheet, the study can be approved. Similar to exempt studies, all city training courses and conflict of interest requirements must be complete before the study can be approved. If a study does not meet minimal risk criteria or does not qualify for any exempt or expedited research criteria, it will be referred to the full board for review. Some examples of procedures that are considered greater than minimal risks include X-rays, MRIs when contrast media and sedation are used for research purposes only, randomized treatment studies, studies involving investigational drugs or devices, or behavioral studies that involve risky interventions, observations of illegal or stigmatizing behavior, or collection of highly sensitive data. All full board studies require submission into Central Study Registration. When Central Study Registration is complete, the study will be automatically ported into Click. You will still need to click Submit in your Click submission in order for your site to enter the IRB workflow. An intake coordinator will send your study to a meeting coordinator who handles the board meeting agendas. And the meeting coordinator will handle most of the pre-review tasks. Before your study is assigned to an agenda for review, conflict of interest review must be complete. Generally, your IRB submission is assigned to an agenda 2 weeks in advance to provide the IRB members enough time to review your submission. Typically, there are 4 meetings per month: the first Monday, the second Tuesday, the third Wednesday, and the fourth Thursday. You may always contact the IRB for a meeting schedule to know when the meetings are taking place. Your study will be reviewed at a committee of IRB members at a convened meeting. You may be invited to call into the meeting, especially for a new study. The review will result either in an IRB approval, a modifications required to secure approval determination, or a deferral of the submission, which will be communicated via a letter in the Click system. If your study gets a modifications required determination, this means that your study will meet the criteria for approval if minor changes are made to the submission. These changes must be submitted in Click and reviewed by an IRB Administrator. If addressed as requested, the administrator may process the final IRB approval and send the IRB approval letter. However, if changes are made other than those that are prescribed by the board members, the study will have to go back to another future board meeting for further review. If your study is deferred, the board is not able to approve the study as it is currently written and usually requires clarifications that they cannot prescribe changes to. After you resubmit your study to the IRB, it will be assigned to another future board meeting for review. After your initial study is approved, you will also have modifications and continuing review submissions that will have to go to the IRB for review. These applications will typically follow the same pathway as an initial study review, with a few exceptions. If your study was determined by the full board to be no greater than minimal risk, it can be reviewed by an IRB Administrator on an expedited basis at renewal. This would meet expedited category 9. Expedited category 8, A, B, and C all deal with situations where the study is greater than minimal risk. However, it can be reviewed on an expedited level by an IRB Administrator. Some of these examples include studies that are permanently close to enrollment, research interventions are complete, and only long-term follow-up remains, or only when data analysis remains. Also, a study that is no greater than minimal risk may have a proposed modification that may impact their study risk level and potentially increase the risk level to be a greater than minimal risk study. That submission may go to the full board for review to determine whether it does increase the overall study level to be greater than minimal risk. Reports of adverse events or noncompliance are reviewed at a level commensurate with their severity. These are in R&I submissions, which will be discussed at a later presentation. Investigators and researchers are advised to begin the submission process as early as possible in order to secure your approval as quickly as we can. The IRB recommends allowing 2 months for a study to complete the process of approval within CLIC. For continuing reviews, we generally ask that they are submitted about 30 days in advance. Keep in mind that most studies need to complete the central study registration process before they go through the IRB workflow in CLIC. Submissions are also typically reviewed in the order that they are received. If you have an extenuating circumstance, you may always contact the IRB. If you have a just-in-time submission for the National Institutes of Health or National Science Foundation, please contact the IRB as well. These reviews are done on a more immediate basis in order to satisfy the requirements for potential funding. This flowchart is present on all of your submissions to the IRB in the CLIC system, whether it is a new study, a modification, or a continuing review. If your study is in the pre-submission phase or any of the bubbles on the bottom, that means it is not in the IRB's hands at the moment. If your study is in the pre-review, IRB review, or post-review phase, that means the IRB is working on your submission in some facet and will get back to you as soon as they can. If your study is in the pre-submission phase or the clarification requested phases, that means the study is in your hands to make revisions or to add some details to the study before it can be resubmitted to the IRB. Please make sure to click the Submit button whether your study is in pre-submission or on a clarification request in order to send your study back into the IRB review workflow. When your study is in the review complete, that means your approval letter should have been sent. Thank you for listening to this presentation. If you have any questions at all about the IRB process, please contact Valerie Bailoni at the UB IRB Helpline at 716-888-4888. You may also email UB-IRB@buffalo.edu with any questions as well. You can also contact Alexis O'Brien, the Clinical Research Facilitator at the CTSI, by calling 716-829-4357 or emailing her at ctsihelp@buffalo.edu. Thank you again for your time and attention.